Hey everybody, this is Autoblog Podcast producer Eric here. I'm just hopping in quickly at the beginning of the episode to let you know that this episode of the Autoblog Podcast is brought to you by the SoFi Daily Podcast. Reaching financial independence starts with having the right information. So every weekday morning, SoFi keeps you up to date with important business news and stock market happenings and how they affect your financial life. So get your money right and search for SoFi, that's SOFI, wherever you get your podcasts. On with the show.
Welcome back to the Autoblog Podcast. I'm Greg Migliore. We got a great show for you today. But joining me on the phones today is senior editor for All Things Green, John Snyder. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm in a good mood. It's Wednesday afternoon. We got a lot of cool things to talk about. And on the other line is news editor Joel Stocksdale. How are you?
Doing all right, hanging in there.
I tell you what, Joel, you actually have the best framed up version I've seen you on our Google Hangouts in basically since we went to quarantine. Normally it seems like the lighting's kind of dark or something. You've got it straight on, nice lighting, so compliments there. As far as virtual etiquette, you're just crushing it today.
People can't see this, but I would post, if this was a painting of Joel, I would put it hang it on my wall.
Of the three of us, he is by far the best setup. And normally it's fine, but it's I think you're in your living room or something with the sun coming in. This is just perfect. I'm in my basement. John looks like he's crashing on a couch somewhere. So
Basement.
There we go. But you guys probably want to hear what we're going to talk about this week in the Autoblog Podcast. Nissan Z car. It's back. Big reveal on Tuesday night. Hope you stayed up for it. If not, we're going to break it down for you. GMC is bringing the Hummer back on October 20th. They also sort of laid out a few teasers on crab mode, which we'll tell you what that means a little bit. They're really playing this one, I think, kind of close to the vest. But John has a little bit more insight as far as the EV powertrain. He can tell us some of it. Some of it he's got to keep under wraps, but we'll break that down. The Hyundai Tucson, not the most exciting vehicle, but it looks wild, I think. So we're going to talk about that. And of course, some Bronco news. Ford released, well, it's not a spy shot. It's definitely a teaser shot of something that could be the Raptor or the Bronco Warthog. I don't know. They both sound pretty cool to me. You guys have a preference before we get into the drives? Which name would you go with? I'm curious. Bronco or Warthog?
You mean Raptor or Warthog?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's tough.
I'm pretty sure they're going to go with Bronco, but
I don't know. Raptor's recognizable, but Warthog is. I like what that conjures up. I'm going with Warthog.
Me too. It was an awesome fighter plane, I think, in World War II, somewhere in there.
No, it's
a modern.
Modern one. Okay.
The Thunderbolt 2 is nicknamed the Warthog, the A10.
Okay. A10. Yes.
It's basically a plane built around a giant gun, which is kind of wild.
Well, that makes sense for a fighter plane, for a warplane. How about you, Joel?
Well, Raptor would make the most sense to me because everybody knows what a Raptor is. It's the fast off-road one. And it would seem, and it's a good name too. I mean, whether you're thinking
Bronco
of
Raptor,
whether you're thinking of big fast dinosaurs or cool fast birds. I mean, Warthog sounds cool too, and I associate it with the Warthog Jeep in the Halo video games, but I don't know. It just seems kind of
forgot about that.
Yeah, it just seems kind of crazy to let all that brand recognition go away. It just, I don't know. Warthog seems fine, but maybe not the best choice marketing wise. But also, it's probably going to be a cool enough SUV that it's not going to matter that much.
I kind of like the idea of a Warthog. Just those things are it fits more of that squat kind of low to the lower shape of the Bronco for what it's worth. I don't know. A lot you could do with it there. we'll see. What's in a name? Who knows? So we did drive some cars, not the Bronco, Warthog, or Raptor, but I drove the Alpina B7. Comes in at $153,000. It was a beautiful car. One of the most beautiful shades of green I've ever seen on an automobile. That was gorgeous. It was expensive, let me put it that way. And John drove another beautiful Mercedes, in this case, Mercedes AMG G63, right?
That's correct.
Awesome. Sounds good. So we're going to talk about those in our drive section. Might get into the Kia Sportage if we have some time. But let's just jump back into the news section. We were having a great conversation on Bronco, so let's just go with that. Ford sort of dropped this teaser out of the middle of nowhere, and everybody's like, well, what is that? Didn't we already see that? What's going on there? What is this? So it was, a bit of a sleight of hand. It was very subtle, kind of a cool way to do it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's out there. Check out the picture on Autoblog. It'll give you some good insight as to what we're talking about. Picture's worth 1,000 words, whether they're written or on audio. But I mean, I think it makes a ton of sense for them to expand the Bronco range in this way. I think the competition in this segment is going to be crazy. We're going to talk about the Hummer here in a little bit, but the Wrangler with a 4xe, that's electric. The Wrangler, of course, is there in the first place. It's sort of like the one to beat, if you will, which is what Bronco is going after. And then you start to lump in other things the Jeep Gladiator shares some of the same purposes, different body style. You've got the 4Runner, a bit bigger, but it's also, can do many of those off-road things. And then you just start going off in all sorts of different directions. Land Cruiser, G63 even, that we're going to talk about, and depending on what you're going to do and how much you're willing to pay, there's some things out there. But I mean, we expected this. In some ways, I kind of wonder how soon we're going to get this. I don't have a lot of intel, maybe you guys do on this, but that seems like a pretty aggressive move. And I think to me that speaks to just how competitive this segment is going to be, that they're already, before it's even launched, saying, hey, look, our Halo, vehicle Raptor thing is on the way. So that to me is interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know, just the fact that the picture they tweeted out shows this thing, all four wheels in the air. It's like, oh yeah, definitely like a Raptor going on here. I associate all Raptor marketing with being airborne. So I love seeing this photo and really nothing else, no other context to it, because it does speak volumes.
Yeah, and this photo, it almost looks like a spy shot because the car is in camouflage, and there was no other information given with it. All it was this photo. But Ford isn't officially saying that this is what it is, but also you can go and see their replies and things, and it's they know that we know that this is the fancy Raptor or Warthog kind of version, and it definitely looks cool, and it definitely makes sense to have something like this, because the F-150 Raptor has been hugely successful, and everybody's been pining for another Raptor version. And people were expecting it to be the Ranger because there already is a Ranger Raptor. But I think this makes more sense for them because it's even more different from an F-150 Raptor than a Ranger Raptor would be. I always kind of felt like one of the issues if they did it with the Ranger would be that the price would get a little bit too close to the F-150 version, and people would be like, well, I can get the bigger, faster one for not that much more money, and that would be kind of an issue for Ranger. But if you want an SUV and you want something with removable top and doors and an SUV body style, that's a more compelling case for the Bronco. Now,
I'm kind of intrigued by the Ranger Raptor, just to jump in there real quick, just because I really like what the Ranger is. To me, it's a very right-sized pickup truck, but I'll jump back out. Continue your thought.
So the other thing, though, that is really confusing to me is why is Ford showing this now? Because the regular Bronco isn't even on sale yet. And it's going to be a few months still before they actually hit dealer lots. And I mean, usually you roll out kind of a special high performance version of a car later in that vehicle's life cycle to kind of revive interest and kind of get a little spike in sales and a little bit more attention. And like, again, this thing isn't, the regular one is not out at dealers yet. We're not in year one yet, basically. And they're already like, hey, we've got even another one. And it's weird because I felt like Ford was in a really, really good spot as far as hype and attention and good press with the Bronco reveal just a couple months ago. Why not just ride that for a while? And like, even though Jeep is showing off like a possible V8 version of the Wrangler and a plug-in hybrid version, for them to show that stuff this year makes a lot of sense because you've got this Bronco coming out and it is a legit competitor to Wrangler in every measurable sense, at least on paper. So it makes sense for them to try and do something to kind of get a little attention back to Wrangler. I don't know. It just seems like Ford is like jumping the gun, and I don't know if they're more worried about Wrangler than they should be. I don't know. It seems like a really strange move, and
it would be great if Ford just like didn't utter another word about it for like a year and a half, and all we got was this one photo for like a good long while. And just have us all speculating about it and even forgetting about it, and then hit us with the real thing.
I'm okay with it. To your point, Joel, it's very unconventional, and I mean, not to repeat myself, but I kind of said this before, like, the thing's not even on sale yet, and they're already showing us the halo? Like, what's going on here? And again, it's unconventional, but at the same time, like John just said, maybe this is all they do. You just sort of like put the idea of the Warthog looming in your like competitors, make them nervous, get people fired up about it, and then you don't say anything for a while. Part of me thinks if they really are that nervous about like Jeep and the GMC Hummer, that seems a little like unnecessary, because the Bronco just has generated so much interest that like, I don't think you need to like go like every time one of your competitors makes an announcement, you need to reply in kind. But who knows? I mean, I like John's move. Like, just put it out there, kind of wink, let everybody know it's coming, and just, leave it there. Let people wonder about the name, then focus back on the other vehicles. And the other thing is, who knows what this thing is? Trademark filings sometimes are like dead on, and sometimes they're not, and so we'll see. I don't know. Either way, I'll be excited about it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and regardless of name, we know that this is the like high performance one. We've seen spy shots of
for sure
a Bronco, of a Raptor Warthog type vehicle before, with beefed up trailing arms and control arms and huge tires and fender flares. So regardless of name, we know that the performance version is coming. It just seems like it's coming really soon, and just seems kind of weird to be talking about it already.
And I think it makes a lot of sense, obviously, that as they're developing and like finalizing the vehicle, that they're doing it all at once. I mean, whenever I would go to Corvette events, just in general, that's an example. It'd be like, oh, wow, the Z06, when did you guys, how'd you guys come up with this? And they're like, well, we did it all at once. We didn't just like do the Corvette and then think, oh, boom, maybe we should do some performance, additions. No, they do it all at once, and it's more organic that way. So I guess we could leave it there. But we, speaking of other big reveals and things this week, the Nissan Z car, Impressive, I thought. They did a live stream on Tuesday night. Check it out. Jewel, you wrote the story. You also went to a backgrounder. So I think it'd be good. I'm just going to kick it over to you. Give us like the Cliff Notes version of what we need to know about it. And then John, you and I can jump in and break it down. But in case you missed it, Z-Car, what do you think? Tell us, Joel.
Well, I think it looks great. And there's a lot to talk about and also not a lot to talk about all at the same time. This car is officially called the Nissan Z Proto, and they were very careful to emphasize that this is not a concept. This is a real running prototype that has gone through some thorough development. There's still development left to do, so this is also not a production car, but the production car should look very similar to this and probably almost identical to this, and should have the same sort of powertrain. It's coming down to mostly kind of little specifics and things. And as far as the outside of the car, it's kind of a blend of like every Nissan Z car in history. At the front, there's a lot of 240Z and 300 or 350Z, because the headlights have this slightly rounded, sort of slightly scalloped shape, very much like the original 240Z. And the grille is this kind of boxy, rectangular shape that's also kind of similar to a 240Z, except without a bumper. It's also kind of tall enough that it sort of evokes the 350Z. Along the side, it has a profile very similar to the 370Z. So it's got a long nose, it's got kind of the fastback, and it's got this sort of 240 inspired rear pillar, just kind of like the 370Z does right now. And at the back, it's got these really cool rectangular LED lit taillights that are hidden in this black panel, very much like the 300ZX from the 1990s. And so it's got lots of Z retro characteristics. We've actually got a whole story highlighting all of the little retro details. And actually some of the other retro details include the Z badges on the rear pillars and also the diagonally placed Fairlady Z badge on the trunk lid, which both of those, that's a throwback to the original 240.
Cool.
So that's the way it looks. As far as what's under the skin, Nissan didn't have much to say. All they said was that it would have a twin-turbo V6, and it will have a manual transmission. And there's an automatic in development, which, I mean, it makes sense. There's going to be people that want the automatic. You can complain as much as you want as an enthusiast, but like there are reasons to have an automatic in a sports car. But regardless, we're really happy that there is going to be a 6-speed manual.
Yeah, I imagine this will be one of the cars where the take rate of the manual transmission is actually really high, kind of like the Miata. But yeah, I'm super happy about that. That they are continuing on with that tradition.
I feel like they got the design almost pitch perfect. When I looked at this, I was watching everything on my phone last night, and I was just like, wow. Like, one thing I think is really impressive about this is how they do sort of meld like multiple generations of the Z car into one, but also it looks like its own thing. You know, I think the Mustang for a while was quite retro, you know, when they went into the, you know, the more retro body style over 10 years ago now. The Camaro has evolved and I think gotten sharper, if you will. But, you know, neither of, I think those cars have successfully combined several generations and put them under like one current thing. You know, this is like, it's like a rolling tribute to the Z car and its heritage. And I love that. I mean, everything from the silhouette to the taillights, which to me, that's a brilliant design flourish. It's just, it looks so good. It speaks to, especially people of my age who remember that original car from that time and place. It's very cool. And frankly, I think it looks like an Aston Martin. When I first saw the pictures, I was like, this looks like the DB11 to me. Just like in like, profile and those headlights up front. I am very impressed with how it looks.
I would like to see it in a different color.
Okay.
From certain angles, I love it. Most angles, in fact. It's just the front is. I don't know. I'm not too sure about that rectangular grille. It's like very like in your face. It could use a little something to break it up. Like the original one had a bumper. It's just a big black rectangle, and maybe that would look better on a different color. I also think this yellow sort of and the lighting and whatnot in these photos sort of hide some of the other details like the hood bulge and whatnot. But so in another color, that might all come together better. But I love those headlights. I love the overall shape of the car. The profile is amazing. The way the hood meets the windshield, meets the roof, meets the tail. It's just, I love that those lines there. And yes, from the rear, it looks fantastic too. Even like the badge placement, I think is just right. It all looks really, really nice from the rear, and especially those tail lights. Those are just downright cool.
It's interesting they call it a prototype, which they even went out of their way to put like in the press release. The only part of this that I think looks truly concept-y to me is that grill. And again, to Joel, to your point, they're saying this isn't a concept, it's like a working prototype and all that good stuff. It's still I feel like there's a little bit of a concept vibe to it. I like once we see it on the road, like it seems like that grill, I don't know, the grill reminds me of some of those amazing concepts you would see. Then like that's all they were was like you guys may or may not remember this, the original Chevy Volt concept. And then they actually revealed the Volt, and it looked not nothing, but it did not look like that concept that they said was what it was. And that original concept had so many cool cues, but it looked a little fake. I don't know. That grill is, I guess it's bugging me, if you will. There's something about it that I like, but like, if it looks just like that, sure. Okay, I'm fine with that. But I feel like once you get it on the road, they're going to do stuff to it, or like, I don't know. Things like that have a way of like sort of getting crappy on the way to production. I don't know, to use a technical term. I don't know. But otherwise, I this is one of my favorite reveals of the year, to be honest. The Z car is something. I remember the first time I drove one. It was back in 2008. I was at Auto Week. The car was actually under embargo, and we were going to put it on our cover that following issue. And I'm really dating myself here. And the car was literally going to be unveiled like that week at the LA Auto Show. But we had the car because we were like, it was pretty close to launch. So they like gave us a car. We put it on the cover. And, we could drive it. It was a press car. It just was like under embargo. And I remember driving it, sitting in the basement thinking, wow, this is freaky. This is, I'm going to take this thing home and it's going to be wild. But I better not screw it up. But so that was cool. So I didn't honestly grow up really liking Z cars all that much. But then when I like really got into them, I definitely fell hard. I was like, this is an amazing car. You start to like learn more about it. So to me, the history, the great tradition of what Nissan has done with this car over the years, I have high hopes for this. I don't know, Joel, you went to some of the backgrounder, if you will, with this. The backgrounder is what I'm trying to say. Do we know anything about like platform, or like, did they give a power range, anything like that? Because all I'm seeing is twin turbo V6, which sounds good, but like, tell me more,
Well, yeah, that's how we all felt. But it was specifically a design roundtable.
Okay.
We were talking with designers, and they were abundantly clear that they were not talking about specifics. We can make some educated guesses, though. As for a twin turbo V6, what seems like the most likely option would be the engine that's in the Infiniti Q60 coupe right now, which is available in 2 different outputs. There's a 300 horsepower one and a 400 horsepower one. And that seems like a really good power range. The 400 horse one would put it right in striking distance of like Supra and Mustang and Camaro. And it would have the added bonus against the Supra in the fact that it is going to have a real manual transmission. So that's what I'm putting my bets on, is that's the engine that they're going to use, because it's ready. It's got about the right power, and like Nissan has already experimented with that engine in Z cars before. A few years ago, they brought a customized Nissan 370Z to SEMA, and it had the Q60 Red Sport 400 horse engine in it. So that seems like the likely choice because it exists. It's designed for a front engine rear drive layout, and it probably isn't too terribly expensive. Like, you could possibly see the GTR engine showing up, but that's a very expensive engine, very high tech, probably not ideal for this car. And that's actually something else that they did talk a little bit about in the backgrounder, that the Z and the GTR, they're making sure that they're very distinct characters. The GTR is like the technological tour de force, that it does everything super fast, super well. It's designed to take on supercars. Whereas the Z, they're really aiming for more kind of traditional sports car criteria and goals, like to make it fun and engaging and something that you want to take out on a back road all the time. It's not overly powerful. It's not overly technological. It's just fun. I mean, obviously it'll be quick, but the priority is to make it a fun sports car. Kind of like a big ol' Miata.
Sounds good to me, man. I don't know. Do you actually know anything about the platform? That's not something that seems to be publicly available. That always is a question I get when it comes to these like sports car, projects. I mean, Toyota and BMW collaborated on their cars. In this day and age, it's not all that odd. Toyota and Subaru collaborated on a different sports car. So, any intel on that?
Not really, but we do know for sure it's 100% a Nissan project. So that'll be kind of another bonus point for Nissan over the Supra, that, hey, it's a Z and it's all Nissan underneath. It's not a BMW or an Audi or a Mercedes. It's a Nissan through and through. Yeah. Obviously there's nothing wrong with the Supra being BMW stuff. Like, it's a very good car. BMW can make some good stuff. I wish they'd make better stuff sometimes. But it'll be fun. It'll be cool for like the Nissan diehards that like they can say, yeah, my Z is 100% engineered by Nissan.
Now I'm curious to see what sort of content Nissan offers in this, because the current Z just feels so old without, it's like so obsolete in terms of,
it's literally 10 years old.
Yeah. And from these photos, it looks like a decent interior. There's, it looks like a digital instrument panel, and there's a touch screen in there. I'm curious as to what sort of amenities they'll offer in this. How much are they going to give to the Z fans who have been suffering without these things for so long?
I mean, I'm sure it's going to be on par with any modern Nissan. I mean, when the 370Z came out, it was on par with every other Nissan. It's just that every other Nissan has changed,
right,
2 or 3 times since they came out.
Did Nissan give any like background? I'm sure they didn't, but why they sort of let the existing Z car like ferment for so long? Like, you don't generally see that that a company would let such a spotlight vehicle, molder, and get moldy like that. I don't know. To me, that was a weird play. I get that it's not the most important thing they're doing. It's not the most important segment. The current one was there if you really wanted one, but did they say anything? I mean, sometimes companies do like a mea culpa. I don't know.
No, they didn't say anything. I did ask something about like, was it hard to get this project off the ground? Because like the Z had sat for so long, it kind of almost seemed like Nissan was going to just let it die. But they didn't really say much about it, and they made it sound like it actually wasn't hard to get this project going. They were talking about how the Z is such an integral piece to the company's history and the company's DNA. The DNA in quotes, because every automaker talks about that. But yeah, it sounded like it actually was not that hard of a proposition. I'm guessing Nissan just had bigger fish to fry than the Z, because I'm guessing that there were probably plenty of diehards that just loved Zs that still bought them, and they're like, well, we can let this go a little bit longer. We need to go worry about Altima. That thing's getting old and it's getting eaten alive by Accord and Camry and all those guys. And like they're probably like, we need to sort our volume leaders before we worry about this kind of low volume car.
Makes sense. Do you guys have a favorite generation
Mm-hmm.
of the iconic Z car?
Well, I've never
I don't know.
been
That's
super.
tough.
I've never been super into Zs. I
Okay.
like them, but I'd say I don't know. Like I kind of feel like each one kind of has its charm. I think I've got a bit of a soft spot for the 350Z because it was and it still is a pretty bold redesign of the car. There are some very subtle hints at older Zs in it, but it's very much its own car. It's very much kind of its time. It's this kind of angular, geometric, kind of beefy, streamlined looking thing from the mid 2000s. And I kind of dig that. But like I like the classic Z, the first generation. I kind of dig the 80s angularness of the third generation one. And and I really like the 90s 300ZX.
So you like all
part
of
of
them
that
is
is
what you're
because
saying?
all of them, I think, except the second
Okay.
generation, which kind of, like, no offense to anybody that likes them and owns them, but that just always struck me as sort of like a flabby version of the original.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. I love the first gen. To me, that's like it looks like an F-Type in some ways. It's like that gorgeous, like, look with those headlights and those proportions, just from that time, from that place, from the, just the zeitgeist of sports cars, in that maybe 15-year period. I would put the original one right up there with it. And then just from like a geeky perspective, I always kind of really liked the third generation. I feel like that like 80s one, 83 to 88, yep, as I look at our story. I like that one. It was so 80s to me. And one of the interesting things about the Z though, is I really feel like it embodied the generation that it was in, as far as like style. Like, look at that 80s car, the third gen. Could that be more 80s? And then you look at the 90s one from 89 to 2000, the fourth gen. That is so 90s, like that's what a lot of sports cars look like. Fifth gen, your favorite there, Joel, the 350. That is so 2000s. And it's funny as I look at how spread out these generations are. If anything, they probably could have let the 370 cook for a few more years. These are very long generations. They don't change this car all that much. It's a halo, and it is what it is. And I've always liked the 370 more than the GTR. It's just more my thing. I prefer the elan it brings to the like discussion and its driving dynamics. GTR is fine. It's fun. I drove one at the Woodward Dream Cruise one time. That stands out randomly. But for me, this is like the Nissan sports car. So John, what is your favorite generation of the Z car?
Um, Probably the first gen, the Datsun. I actually, it's so long ago now, but a buddy of mine from Wisconsin who he and his dad have a shop there, and he actually had um a 240Z, the 240 or 280. But he drove it here to Michigan when we went to a concert together. Um, and I got to drive that around. It was really really fun. The little teeny tiny shifter knob on the stick shift felt like a video game, and just a charming little car. uh, it could get pretty squirrely at high speed, but it was fun. It was fun to drive.
Cool.
But that said, I do love the current gen quite a bit, even though it's feeling old. I've driven the snot out of that car on various occasions, and it's just a blast to drive.
Yeah, that sounds perfectly like an amazing story, actually. The new Z car, whatever they end up calling it, we've got a piece on site, hypothesizing about that as well. I mean, it really makes you want to drive an old one. I've been able to drive some like sports cars, especially like the first gen ones. And I actually am really getting into like 80s cars too, just because I feel like it's like a recent past, if you will. Like it takes you back,
Yeah.
but not all the way back. Like they're a little more drivable than some of those early 60s sports cars. I drove a 1969 Alfa Romeo one time. It was the Spider. That car it wasn't too tough to drive, but there was some challenge there, if you will. So
Mhm.
I would love to drive an old Z car, but haven't driven a few cars from the 80s, not even in vintage situations, just having driven them in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like the car industry did come a long way as far as making your cars like drivable in like 20 years there. And then of course it's night and day compared to now. Do you guys have a preference for the name? I'm curious. What do you think they should call this thing?
Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
That's
That's
a
helpful,
that's a
John.
tough one. Just pick a number and add Z to the end.
Yeah, that's true. I know.
mean-
Go ahead, Joel.
So I think it should be called 300ZX. And the reason, and I've got a couple reasons for that. One, it sticks with assuming that it's getting the twin turbo 3-liter, which seems pretty likely. That sticks with the naming tradition that they've had since the start, with giving the number based on the displacement.
Yeah.
I mean, 300 fits. And having it as ZX is just a nice nod to the very first twin turbo Nissan Z, the 300ZX.
Uh-huh.
Plus, like, the ZX designation kind of came about with kind of a big generational shift, and this seems like a pretty big one, going to forced induction engines over naturally aspirated. So that's what I like. I know that there's been some talk of maybe doing 400Z, since it could have 400 horsepower and it would be a larger number than 370, which
Mhm.
marketers I think would probably like. They don't have to explain. Yes, they don't have to explain. Oh, it's a lower number, but it's a faster car.
Yeah.
And admittedly, 400Z is a nice round number and sounds newer, but I think they should stick with tradition. And the thing is, I feel like most Z buyers would understand having the lower number because they probably understand the naming scheme. And even if they don't, if they named it 300ZX, it would be kind of cool because it's echoing back to one of the more beloved versions of the Z.
I would go with, I like 400ZX. I think it rolls off the tongue quite nicely, just from the marketing perspective. I think it's tough to go backwards with a car. It just putting it to like 300, I don't know. I feel like that might confuse people, even though sentimentally, I kind of like the idea of using like 300 in the name. And then I don't know. I think 400Z, and then maybe a break from tradition. They could make ZX if it was like a slightly different variant. I realize that's not exactly historically correct, but I mean, doesn't have to be exactly, perfect to history. You can rewrite it a little bit as far as like cars and, names and things like that. So yeah, I'd probably go with like 400Z, maybe 400ZX for like a special variant, that sort of thing. But that's a lot on the Z Cart. Check out our coverage on site. Lots of great stories. We've mentioned a few of them. We've got the reveal. If you want to go back and watch that live stream, please do check it out. It's a pretty good live stream. It's, relatively quick. You can see it for yourself. Check out Joel's story. Check out Zach's story on all the styling cues. And of course, please weigh in on the comments. Let us know what you think. What do you think of this car? Let's leave it there. Another reveal. They're coming. It's the season of reveals. The Hyundai Tucson. Monday night, Jeremy Korzeniewski covered this for us. Normally you might say, crossover, that doesn't really fit in with some of these things, but it's very important for Hyundai. And what really, I think, stood out to me was the design. I think this one really, it stands out. It's a little eccentric. Some might say it's a bit much, but what I love here, and you see this in the Sonata and the Elantra, is that Hyundai is going back to being Hyundai. I think they're taking risks. This is like, I don't know, use a sporting analogy. This is like a high profile, high octane offense where they're throwing the ball a lot. They're not always connecting, but it's splashy. And that's what they're doing here. And that to me is who they are. I like the grill. There was some Slack discussion about what are they doing there, but I think they got a lot of it. Maybe not all of it, but I like it. What do you guys think?
I like it. I
Okay.
think it's pretty cool. I think the overall profile is maybe a little bit conventional, but that's kind of what you're going to get with a crossover. There's not that much you can do with kind of the body shape, but all of the detailing on it is awesome. I love the grille. I love how the daytime running lights are hidden inside the grille. Like it's all of these individual little triangles that the grille is made up of triangles. It's just that when you fire it up, on either side of it, a whole bunch of them light up in LEDs, and it looks really cool. I like the kind of sort of robotic technological kind of edgy surfacing on the sides and the aggressive taillights. I think it's really cool on the outside. I'm quite excited about it, and I feel like this, along with stuff like the new Elantra, the new Sonata, and the Genesis line, a lot of the new Kias, I really think that Hyundai Kia is kind of the global car design leader right now. Like they are the ones that are killing it. I'm excited. And even the interior, I think looks really cool with these like deep dual cowls and like trim that runs from the center stack up into the dash and then back around onto the doors. It's a really neat thing.
That is a bold statement. The global design leader. Whew,
Yeah.
Okay. Hot take.
I'm gonna stand by it too.
All right.
I like some things about it. It's a little bit busy for my taste. Just a few too many lines in the bodywork. But I do really like that lighting in the grill. I think that's super clever and really unique. It'll make it stand out. Makes it memorable. I do like the lighting in the rear too. I like the rear in general. And I don't know, the profile, the silhouette is so. It's those extra lines, below the belt line, the character line that runs down the side of the car and then kind of wraps around the back too. And the lines below that on the doors is just a little much for me. But I don't know. I think this is one that will probably likely grow on me over time. The more I look at it, in fact, as I look at it now, there's some of the things I'm starting to understand how this is a cohesive design language, and it sort of comes together nicely, despite the the busyness of it all. I do really like that interior too. It reminds me of the old Subaru Tribeca, the way it sort of wraps around the driver and front passenger.
This was the good part of the Tribeca design.
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of feels like your own personal spaceship or something. But it's done sort of elegantly here, and it yeah, it all seems to come together nicely. It looks like there's some nice mood lighting in there, some lots of little storage pockets and stuff. I dig this interior quite a bit from what I can see so far.
Tribeca, man. We're really flashing back to the aughts here. Geez. Another car I drove at Auto Week like 10 years ago. Anyways, let's talk about the GMC Hummer. I actually sat in on a virtual press conference roundtable with GMC and Buick Vice President Duncan Aldred. He has been running the show over there for a few years now. And, they do these like sort of like background briefings with reporters. This one was more about the business, but they did sort of tease out what the plan is for the Hummer. October 20th, that's the reveal. Set your calendars. I think it's going to be a really interesting one. I can't wait to see what the final product looks like, if you will, or whatever they end up showing on the 20th. You never know these days. They showed off crab mode. They didn't show it off. They threw a teaser video with a crab in it. So I guess I should really be specific about what I'm saying here. That's about it. John, you probably know way more about this, having not gone to this. But long story short, I'm intrigued. I think the Hummer is going to be polarizing, frankly, for General Motors. I feel like some people are going to be like, what is this? I don't know. I think they need to get a little more of the EV side of it out there. They've said something like 1,000 horsepower and some crazy torque figure that they need to convert into actual real world torque. 0 to 60 is impressive. I want to say it's about 3 seconds. So it's definitely going to be like a Tesla fighter. It's got the off-road chops to compete with the Bronco, the Wrangler. Although by my count, it looks like this thing's going to be a bit bigger than the Bronco and Wrangler. It's more like a 4-door version, be my guess, although I'm sort of transposing my old vision of what, the Hummers used to be. So maybe this will be a little bit smaller. I don't know.
Did they let you see it at all? The vehicle in its totality?
No, it was a Skype call. So
okay.
No, we didn't see it. But it was more just like, hey, this thing is coming out there. I mean, who knows? Maybe the reason they did this, Ford threw out that Bronco teaser, is they were nervous about, GMC. I don't know. You wouldn't think so, considering GMC said almost nothing, but I don't know. Who knows? But you actually know a bit more about this than I do, John. You went to a backgrounder. I know some of this you probably still can't say, but I mean, what's your take on this? Is this going to be good? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it looked cool. It's big.
Okay.
But yeah, I saw the pickup prototype, and then I saw they had I don't know if it was a working prototype, but they had a model on the floor of the SUV too. From the front, they both look the same. We've seen the Hummer grill already, the light up grill. Yeah, removable roof panels. The pickup has these sort of sail panels behind the cab. Connecting it to the bed there. And it rides very, very tall. The SUV has a slightly shorter wheelbase than the pickup, and it also had removable roof panels. And that one had the spare tire mounted on the back. The pickup that I saw had the GMC Multi Pro tailgate on it. And then inside they've got huge, like 30-inch displays. That those big continuous displays. And then some design theme, like a lunar sort of design theme with like topography of the Sea of Tranquility and whatnot. on the floor mats and on the speaker covers, and then it had some things that like vents that sort of mimic the look of the sort of the eye-shaped taillights, like the letter I shaped taillights. But yeah, they didn't tell us a lot about specific figures. There's going to be, I believe, multiple versions of the powertrain. It's going to use Ultium, which is the new modular electric powertrain. So I imagine, if the 1,000 horsepower one's going to have several motors, but at least two, but probably maybe three. And then they'll probably have lesser versions with fewer motors. But yeah, that's basically what I know. But yeah, I saw it. It looked great. It was big. It was definitely a big boy, and it definitely looked like it could do the business off road. So
I'm excited
to see it again, because this was all from memory. We couldn't take cameras or anything, so
yeah.
It'll be cool to see it again and actually have photos that I can look at.
Any thoughts on this, Joel?
Well, so the crab mode is, that's mostly what I can go off of, because I haven't seen anything from GM and haven't talked to any of the guys there. So I'm going up mainly off that trailer. But the crab mode it's interesting. I'm not entirely sure how practical that's going to be, because it's not like it can't turn the wheels like perpendicular to the length of the car so that it could go straight sideways. It's a little bit at an angle. So wherever you're going, you're not going directly sideways. You're going a little bit forward too. So you've got to kind of keep all that in mind. So I'm not entirely sure all the places that's actually going to be useful, but it is kind of cool. And it also, like, I'm a little bit excited because, and we're going to do another flashback to like 15 years ago on vehicles. Reminds me of Quadristeer that you could get on GMCs back in the day, on the like Sierra Denali, that it could either do like super sharp low turn, low speed opposite steering, so that you could have like a super tight turning radius, or it could do slight parallel turns for highway stability. Basically, kind of sort of like passive four-wheel steering, but amped up a bit so that you can do like extra tight maneuvers and things. Actually, kind of like what the Mercedes S-Class is getting now, except GMC had it 15 years ago. I'm assuming that the Hummer is going to be able to do some of that stuff, because if you're going to engineer in that amount of turning angle for the rear wheels, you're probably going to have a couple of ways you can play with that.
Right.
Actually, it would be kind of interesting if, like, I have no idea if this is going to be it. This is just me kind of being like, oh, this would be cool. It would be kind of cool if you could have the rear wheels and the front wheels. Yeah, actually, this is probably not going to be capable. Basically, do you remember the Jeep Hurricane concept? Again, this is from like 15 to 20 years ago, but it was their like dual V8 engine, like kind of Hummer looking thing, and it could turn all of its wheels out so that it could do zero radius turns. It could literally turn like even better than a tank turned, because it's just this little tiny little zero radius circle. It'd be cool if it could do that, but I'm just thinking to myself, like, you'd also have to get the front wheels to also do that thing, and boy, that would be a mess of a steering rack to try and engineer for basically a party trick. But it would be cool.
It would be cool. I too, sort of doubt the usefulness of crab mode. I can't really think of a lot of situations, like on or off road, where I need to go slightly diagonal. you know. But I think if they have some sort of four-wheel steering system on there, and they can make it do that, they probably said, why not? Let's do it and call it crab mode. So I think it's fine. And who knows? Maybe there's like that once in a lifetime event where you're stuck, and the only way for you to get out is to go diagonally. Then you'd be pretty happy that you had it. But
yeah, I mean, I guess there's probably maybe times when you're off-roading and you might have gotten yourself into a spot that you're like, oh, I can't quite make this. I need to, and like it'll take a 30,000 point turn for me to actually kind of wiggle it out. That might make it a little bit easier. So
especially since the vehicle's so big, too.
Yeah.
You can see yourself getting in some tight spots with it.
Yeah, so there may be some uses for it, but it's definitely getting into sort of niche edge case kind of scenarios.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they justify their thinking behind it when it comes time to actually reveal it, or when people start driving it.
It's a cool party trick, I guess, and it seems like with so many other things in the segment, it's good to have your own sort of thing you can point to and say, well, look, ours could do that. And then considering it sounds like it's going to be such a large vehicle, you never know. I mean, like a Wrangler is generally pretty nimble, especially like a two-door. I'm sure the two-door Bronco will be the same way. Who knows? If like the SUV in particular is as big as, it sounds like it could be. I don't know. I mean, it's been a while since I've done a lot of off-roading, but I'm just good enough at it to get myself into trouble. So maybe somebody like me who is just bad enough to get himself also into trouble, this might save me. I don't know. But speaking of off-roaders, G63 AMG, that's not going to be cheap. Did you drive it on your lawn, John?
No, not this time. Not yet.
Okay. What's stopping you?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. I don't know what my thinking was. I think Kat was following me in her car. I think I did it just to, just as a goof, just to
take down the value of your house by about $100 or something.
Right.
Just.
But anyway, yeah, this thing is cool. It's in this red color that's called Jupiter Red, and it's a really nice paint. There's not like there's not metallic. There's no like flake in it. It's really nice. And I've got the Monroney here. This one comes out to $182,545. But seeing a G-Wagon in my driveway used to not really do it for me. The last generation was just uncomfortable, and seating position was weird. It was difficult to drive. The old steering was just made your arms tired, and the whole thing always felt like it would tip over. This generation just feels so well sorted out, and like they took the decades of people complaining about certain things and fixed them. It's very comfortable seating position. Doesn't feel like it's going to tip over on the on ramp. The interior is really, really, really nice. This one has a lot of carbon fiber, which I like. I don't always like that, but it looks really good in this instance. And yeah, it's sort of a splashy, flashy G-Wagon. Feel a little bit like Big Little Lies or something when I go to pick up Wally at kindergarten in it. But yeah, it's cool. And Wally loves it. My son, he really digs it. He keeps wanting to just sit in it. I put a car seat in it. There's not putting Wally like directly behind me. He doesn't have a lot of leg room. There's not a lot of rear leg room, at least behind my seating position,
But
which
your
is kind of
son's like
surprising.
5'10", right? I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
he's actually 4'1" now, which is
gotcha.
kind of nuts. Going on 6'4", but otherwise it's very comfortable. It's easy to get in and out of. The seating position, like I said, it's not just comfortable, but you have a really good view of the road. The verticality of the windshield. It's not the best for aerodynamics, but it's pretty good for visibility. You don't have these angled A pillars, taking up your view whenever you turn your head. Um, and it's just generally fun. It sounds great. It's a blast to floor it, and to use the paddle shifters and uh, turn on uh, the sport exhaust and rack up the sport suspension to its stiffest setting, and it's actually uh, a joy to drive.
Is this the same one we actually had February of last year, or is this a different G63? I'm just going through looking for driver's notes and realizing that we had a G63. Looks like we have stock photos, so it's red, so it's hard to tell if this is the same one.
The one we had
Oh no, it was
before,
gray.
yeah, it was like blue or gray. It was a
Yup.
dark color. It
Yeah.
wasn't. It definitely wasn't the same one. And man, I love that red on it.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
It looks really good.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for the G63. I think it's just there's a fun note in these driver's notes we did before that the G63 outsells the 550, which is kind of hilarious when you think about it, but it makes a ton of sense actually. You want the power and nothing else will do. I think it is, I wouldn't say night and day difference between like the driving characteristics, but this generation there's a demonstrable improvement as far as the steering and the handling compared to the old one. It's still a workout.
I'd go so far as to call it a night and day difference. The last one was a drag
Okay.
to drive.
Yeah,
and this one's
think
much
so?
better.
I
Yeah.
would say night and day also. I hated
Night
the
and
old
day.
one. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. It had terrible handling. It had terrible steering. It had terrible interior space. And it was a chassis that was ill suited for the amount of power that those AMG engines could put out. It's like it was it was bad. But
What's your
the
point?
new
I
one-
liked all of that. I thought all of that was great. I love the fact that you were like all over the place, like you're riding some amusement park ride.
Like here's the thing: like when a
you may
Jeep,
be right,
when a
though.
Jeep Wrangler has better handling characteristics than
Yeah,
what you're building, you've done something wrong. Like maybe it's
Right.
time to change things.
yeah. But yeah, man, the funny thing about that last time we had the G63 was we had a blizzard, and I remember I went into the office on a Monday morning, and it was really coming down, and my son had just his year checkup, pediatricians. So I went home at lunch because half you guys probably didn't even come in that day. Literally nobody was there. I'm like, all right. I actually wore sweatpants, as I recall. So I wore sweatpants to the office and left at 11:30. And we get home, and I'm like, you know what? Let's go to the pediatricians. No reason to cancel. We have one of the most capable armored tanks of a vehicle anywhere. Let's go. So it was fun. Yeah. Do you happen to know how much yours cost, John?
Oh yeah. This one it came out to 182,400. I'm sorry, 182,545 in total.
So your G-Wagon was actually $30,000 more than my Alpina B7, which I drove, which is insane. That's the price of a decent Mustang. But
well, the red paint on this alone is $6,500.
Oh, come on. Come on.
Yeah.
That's straight up price gouging.
It's crazy.
That's a little ridiculous. Is there any
You-
difference in this red paint versus, say, the red paint you might get on, I don't know, a CLA that costs about $30,000?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
it's got some expensive options on here. The 22-inch forged AMG cross-spoke wheels are $44.50.
I would do that. I don't think your kid needs to go to college for all 4 years. Just 3 is probably enough. He's tall.
It's got a top speed delimiter.
Okay, so you can literally go as fast as you want across your lawn?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I mean, and as far as aerodynamics allow.
Yeah, it says it'll do 149 miles per hour. But that delimiter is $2,200.
Okay.
The carbon fiber is $3,700.
So wait a minute, they're charging you $2,200 to basically probably take something off the car?
Yeah.
Okay,
delete
that's
it.
and
that's
probably,
amazing.
It's probably barely even that. It's probably we plug in a computer reader and it changes some code, and now you can go faster.
Yeah.
Good times. All right.
The silver brake calipers are $1,500.
I would do that. Those look sweet. Just look at the website. That's worth $1,500. You don't need to eat for a couple of months. That's fine.
Yeah, so it goes from 156,000 to 182,000 pretty darn quickly.
That's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a car for the very rich.
I'm
but
just
it's an
thinking to
amazing
myself that like I would probably buy like a Bentley Bentayga instead, because
Ooh.
I mean, it doesn't have the presence of a G-Wagon, and obviously it doesn't have the off-road capability, but who buys a G63 and plans to actually take it somewhere that you need all 3 diff locks?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't want to go anywhere where I'm gonna scratch that paint.
You're going to need
Right.
crab mode at that point.
Yeah.
and I
Which would
think,
probably be $30,000 on the G-Wagon.
and like the Bentayga has an even more special feeling interior. It's got like the organ stop air vent things, and it's got just wood and gorgeous leather everywhere. And
Yeah, the Bentley craftsmanship is just outstanding. It would definitely feel very special. But this one, I mean, I love the Mercedes interiors now. With the different colored interior mood lighting and stuff. They just have a nice ambiance,
Mhm.
and they're very comfortable.
yeah, Mercedes interiors are very good.
But they don't have that that hand built sort of uber detail that Bentley does.
Mhm.
The I'm wondering how much a Rolls-Royce Cullinan costs. Probably more, but I mean,
It's more.
cross-shopping the segment. I mean, hey. I mean, the funny thing about Bentleys, I've often found I spent a good deal of time in a GTC driving up and down the California coast a few years back. And it's such a comfortable car. The interiors are so good. I've always found Bentleys, this is sound weird, easy to drive. So like,
Yeah.
when you're thinking about, I need a really expensive crossover, the Galanda wagon's still a lot of work to drive, even in its like more evolved form. So that's where I can see your Bentayga point. I actually would probably still go with the G63 because I just really like big, rough and tough off-roaders. I mean, if I made a short list of vehicles that I would want for fun or even for practical, like I need a car, it would literally include like Forerunners, Broncos, Wranglers, like things that aren't even super practical, but I could make fit my lifestyle. So, I mean, that's how I would come down. Any other Galanda wagon thoughts there, John?
Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you're listening, I would love to drive your electric one that you had built.
Me too, actually. That sounds pretty awesome. All right, well, let's go to, compared to John's SUV, it's basically economy class in the BMW Alpina B7. It costs a very low rent, $153,000 is what the sticker said. This one actually started at $143,000, so it just had a few of the optional packages on it. Mine was a gorgeous shade of forest green, and with all of the like things that Alpina did to it, those big spoked wheels, the calibers, the chrome taillights and back. The interior is gorgeous. You know what? It kept coming. The thought that kept coming back to me is this reminded me of cars that you would see at like a Concours from the 50s, where those cars were just gorgeous, and it was like a different time, a different place. I think it's the third time I've said that this podcast. So drink, I guess, if you're playing the Greg drinking game. But like, I mean, some of those cars really had presence, from the fins, the grills, the colors, and it all worked in harmony. Certainly you still see that today, but like, it's rare that a modern car hits me in that way. It seemed like such a rolling dessert tray of decadence and luxury. So the presence to me was outstanding. It's a lot of fun to drive. It's got a bi-turbo V8 with 600 horsepower. So yeah, there's plenty of giddy up. I actually forgot how much I like the 7 Series. We always go on and on about the S-Class, which I would say, I know there's a new one that we did show you earlier in September, but even having somewhat recently driven an old one, it's a very good car. Generally, we've ranked the 7 Series behind it. I would probably still do that, but candidly, the 7 Series is very, very good, I think. It handles well. The steering is very good. Obviously, this one, I have the Alpina dressings on it to really kind of, further color my, vision of the 7 Series. It's a strong car. And I think I really like what Alpina does. They've really grown in the last probably 10 years. They've expanded to more vehicles across BMW's lineup. It's somewhat of a unique thing in the car business to have this, like, I mean, they're not in-house, but this, like, very, like, I don't know, close relationship with, don't call them a tuner. They do not want to be called a tuner. Call them like a cousin automaker. I don't even know what to put it. Cause I mean, they really are a tuner if you want to be honest about it, but, you don't see that too much, it's not like even how AMG or BMW and M or anything like that. It's like, it's very much its own company with its own culture. I really enjoyed driving this car. I was super psyched. I have a lot of pictures. It really motivates me to find time to try and write a few thoughts on this thing too, because it's impressive, I thought. And I've always liked Alpinas. So yeah, and that's my mini review of it.
Yeah, they have a lot of little touches that in addition to the extra performance, but just like for me, it's the little touches, the badge here and like, some distinct like wheel here and like these little things that make it feel special and make it feel customized and doted upon and thought over. That's what really draws me to these Alpinas.
It also has a good deal of, I think, just awareness and excitement in the BMW community. I was talking to a friend who formerly owned a 5 Series. He owns something else now, but he owns a Cadillac Escalade, actually. But I mean, when I was like, yeah, I'm getting a 7 Series, it's like, oh, that's cool. You guys get many of those? We're like, not really, And he's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And we're talking like, and it's an Alpina. And he's like, oh, wow. Okay. Just because like, I mean, that's where this job is so cool. It's like Alpinas are not even things you could get that easily. They are that rare, distinctive thing that, I mean, when you're talking about luxury items where you want to maybe, show that, you like are a car connoisseur, getting an Alpina, I think is a great way to do it. It shows that you have taste, I think. Are they a little overpriced? Yeah, maybe. I mean, you're paying for a lot. That being said, I thought it was cool that Burkhart Boven-Cipian, I'm not sure I got that out right, but it's cool to see the name on that little placard right below the shifter. That was pretty cool. Long story short, I had dinner, a few years back at the Geneva Motor Show with, it must have been his father, Andreas. It was a BMW trip. And one of the things they wanted to do was get us more acclimated with some of the Alpina people, because they were trying to like get American journalists to write more about Alpina, which I thought was actually a really cool thing. And the conversation was, I thought, very cool, because he really expressed to all of us just like how they really care about the details in these cars. They know that like AMG and M and all the other like performance brands do different things, but they were like, look, this isn't for everybody, but it's like a different flavor of the BMWs if you'd like that. And it was a really cool dinner. It was like the night after the first press day at the Geneva Motor Show. It was in, I think, the French section of Geneva. The wine and the food was pretty good. I missed the Geneva Motor Show the more I think about this. So one of the cooler shows you could get to.
Yeah, there's a lot that I like about Alpina. I really think their designs are very tasteful. They look sporty, but not aggressive and brash. They still look luxurious and elegant, and I love their multi-spoke wheels. They're so pretty.
Best part of the car. It's cheesy to say that, but the wheels are amazing.
Yeah, and I like the little touches, like the blue gauges. That's been a signature of theirs for a long time. And I like that kind of their tuning seems to be like, we're going to make it faster and handle better, but we're also going to make sure that it's still just as comfortable as ever. And I think that also makes a lot of sense for the 7 Series in particular, because there is an M-branded 7 Series that has the V12, but to me that just doesn't make any sense to have an M7 or even like an M760, because it's a huge car. It seems kind of, I don't know, it seems kind of silly to have like a sort of sporty track-oriented version of it. It's like, yeah, you made it fast, but also like this is not something that was ever really meant to go fast. I mean, if you know what I mean.
I mean, I've taken a 7 Series around Monticello. I don't know what you're talking about. I think it was amazing on the track. You're right, though, Joel. It's not a handling car. It's, if anything, it's fun to take a car like that somewhere where it's not supposed to be and like, slide the tires and get a workout through the steering wheel. But yeah.
And a couple of the other nice things about Alpina is that their name hasn't been plastered on as many vehicles as possible. Because, I mean, the like semi-sporty models of BMW are like M full model designation afterward. I mean, like the full M cars are like M4, M3, but then you've also got like M4 35 that's not as powerful but is sort of sporty. And like even on the M cars, like there's M badges everywhere, whereas Alpina is way more subtle about it. And I think that helps Alpina's brand feel a little bit more special. Because, like, you can get an M on almost anything, but you can't get an Alpina on everything. That's kind of special. And what's funny about all that is that the Alpina B7 is not the most expensive 7 Series. The M760 is, which I'm sure it's because of that V12 that isn't really shared in anything else. But it's kind of funny that you can buy a version of the 7 Series that probably will get more oohs and ahs from people, but it's not the most expensive one.
So let's do a poll here. Would you take the 760 or the B7?
B7.
B7.
Make it a 3-way, make it a hat trick. I agree. To me that they're both 600 horsepower. And the last time I drove that V12, it was like driving a battleship, a cruise ship. Like the hood flies up. It's like it does some weird things low on the band. Once you get it going, it's kind of fun. Don't get me wrong. I love a V12. V12 is amazing. There's like not that many that you could buy out there. So to me, it's like, you do get some cool points for that. Let's put it that way. You've got the Alpina, which looks very elegant when you're parking it, wherever you park your 7 Series. But then in conversation, somebody's like, oh, what's that? That's cool. You just kind of slip in that, yeah, it's packing a V12. I mean, that's pretty big bragging rights when you think about it. So that's the only thing that makes it close. Like if it was a really powerful V8 or even a V10, it's not even close. For me, I still go B7, but it's a little tougher call just because it's so fun to say, hey, I have a V12. Like, okay, do you now? All right.
So fancy.
I mean, to me, that's just like such a, what other car is a V12, that you could buy? It's insane. It sounds like something you'd hear about in a 1930s Bugatti or something, like, I don't know, but it was a lot of fun. It's a beautiful car. I pulled up to get some pizza in it, and they brought it out to me, which is amazing. And they were just like, they were taking notes. It's like, okay, so we have your order. We're going to run it out to you. And they were just like, what kind of car is this? And I'm like, an Alpina B7. They're like, okay, just park over there. We'll get it out to you. Because it's not a car, that people see very much. Let's put it that way.
Right.
But yeah, it's a cool car. It's a lot of fun. We'll leave it there. Any final thoughts this week on absolutely anything? We'll do a quick lightning round of free chat. The floor is yours, Joel.
Well, it's been fun to have lots of reveals and stuff again.
Yeah.
Like this summer, I mean, summers are usually a little bit on the slow side, but with the pandemic going on, the summer's been a bit of a drag. So it's been kind of exciting to finally have like big reveals like the Z and the Tucson and like the Bronco before that and like the Hummer in about a month. Like it's fun that things are ramping up again. I'm excited.
I'm with you there. You know what I like too is actually work is work, if you will, but then sort of coming back at like 8:30 and you're like, let's see what the new Z car looks like. It was better than anything on TV last night. So I like that too. How about you, John?
I like eggs.
Sounds good.
Eggs are good.
Eggs, some spinach, some feta, maybe. That's what's in my fridge right now. I might make some of those.
That's actually sounding really good right now. I may be a little hungry.
I love a good shakshuka, like the sort of hash with tomato sauce, and then you cook it in like a cast iron, then you carve out little wells and crack the eggs into those little spots, and then put the whole thing in the oven for a few minutes. That's my jam.
I was trying to do that last, like maybe a weekend or two ago. I was actually carving out the spot for like the eggs to break up the hash browns because they were frozen, and I broke the knife off, which is crazy. I'm like, this is like German engineered like stainless steel or something. Like, how did this happen? So I had to throw it all out because I was like, yeah, I think I got all of the knife out of there. But do you really want to be eating your hash browns and wondering, did I get all of this really sharp steak knife out of my eggs? So we'll try again this weekend. And we'll try again next week with another show of the Autoblog Podcast. Thanks for listening this week. Be safe out there. By the time you listen to this, we'll be right on the edge of fall, which is my favorite time of the year. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.